I understand.
Well, we got their birth certificate, and then they got married in Wexford County, because you go to Wexford County was closer to Traverse City was. Cadillac.
Thanksgiving, and they'll probably be home for things at Christmas time.
My neighbor, my book, we've known each other since we were 18. His dad was president of the Buckley Bank.
No, look at the form.
Well, there was a bank in the town of Wexford.
Oh, you do? Oh, on your website?
Right on the Grand County line. All that's left is the foundation.
I gotta get on that site. When I get some breathing air, I gotta get some,
And the Cornings did.
Okay, so, right, okay.
I gotta get some air.
Dinah Corning, she's been dead for 20 years now. She was an aunt to this guy I just mentioned, and she had picture albums, all that down there. I don't know where they ever went, but she had
Yeah, it's okay.
big old photo album. Our business in Wexford.
I'm sorry, what was the date on that again?
It used to be the county seat.
Was that in the evening? Might be back.
It is in the evening.
Yeah, I thought it was, but I thought it was funny because it was in the evening.
I'm coming back from
I
Florida.
got a cousin who lives
I don't
down there,
know what
Glenn
time.
Rogers.
Seven
You know
p.m.
Glenn?
7 p.m. Got a check deal.
Great grandparents came over, stole away.
Look good.
I don't know.
Got out of the lot, and they were 16 years old.
Yeah, I saw your.
And Nancy Cranmer married, that's how they married. But it's only 3 years old. They wouldn't do it. The original spelling is L-E-H-K-U-L.
There's a lot of good.
And there's still some people spelling.
All right, we'll get started in about 1 minute here.
But in the meantime, I'd rather see some of those.
Spelling.
There's about 4 of my favorite.
Let's see. Chimney Christmas.
Hold on your chair. Hold on your seat. Hold on your table.
You have about 10 seconds to stop smiling.
Comedy hour is over.
Oh, well.
When I was at Green Lake, I hired Ed.
I'm just trying to see out of these glasses. Dear
Now just
God.
take them off.
We hired him to be
No.
our inspector at Green Lake.
I will adjust.
Are they too strong for you?
They're new.
He still
I
isn't
know.
Franklin.
You know, I'm going
Just not used to
He's the guy that carves the
To
pumpkin.
get a headache off of them.
All right, I'd like to call the Wednesday, October 5th meeting of the Grand Traverse County Public Health and Safety Committee to order. The first order of business will be the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Linda, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Gilman,
Here.
Inman,
Here.
Henschel,
Present.
Lemko,
Here.
Richardson,
Here.
Thomas,
Here.
Max Bauer. Here. Fleece,
Excused.
Chairman Wheelock.
Yes, ma'am. And we will note that Commissioner Fleece is excused. First order of business is next order of business is the approval of minutes of the September 7th meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the September 7th, 2011 minutes as presented in our packet.
Second.
Motion by Inman, supported by Henschel. Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. This brings us to the first opportunity of public comment. The clerk will read the rules for public comment. There is a second opportunity later in the agenda, and we will take public comment if there is a matter on the agenda that we're going to discuss at that time.
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners, which is required to be open to the public under the provisions of the Michigan Open Meetings Act as amended. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. Chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak.
Having heard the rules for public comment, is there anyone wishing to make public comment at this time? Seeing none, we'll move forward with special order of business.
Approval of agenda.
Oh, I suppose we should approve the agenda. And you did get an amended agenda yesterday or today.
We did?
It's on my email.
We did, who won?
Should have.
Who did?
I don't have an amended agenda.
What's the change? That's right, it was the,
All right.
Okay, the amended agenda just added a additional item under the sheriff's office, action jail fees project presentation.
Okay.
Will entertain a motion to accept the amended agenda.
I make that motion. Support.
Motion by Henschel, supported by Richardson. Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Special order of business, employee recognition. Commissioner Henschel sits on that committee.
Always wanted to see what this looks like. Okay. We
Got the
put
shock
together,
button right here, too.
Yeah.
The 3-minute button.
We put together a brief presentation to inform the commission what the employee recognition team is and what we've been up to this year. And I will start off the presentation with the mission of our team is to recognize and encourage employees and volunteers for their dedication to quality service and submission of constructive ideas. The members of the team from different departments around the county. From Resource Recovery, we have Kim Elliott. County Administration, Sarah Adams. Department of Public Works, Marcia Johnson. Health Department, Sarah Schimmick and Commissioner Henschel, myself. From Human Resources, we have Carol Bradway. And County Jail, Amy Johnson, and our own Human Resources Director, Jen Seaman. What is employee recognition? It's acknowledgement of employee dedication and achievement. It can be public or private, monetary, non-monetary, might be verbal or written. And I believe that's your slide.
Why is employee recognition important? Through employee recognition, you can motivate employees, continue with good performance and loyalty to the organization. Also allows you to retain key employees, keep employees motivated, encourage innovation, and increase productivity, obviously lower employee stress, improve safety, reduce absenteeism and turnover. Let's see, how important is recognition to employees? This was a poll that was done by the Society of Human Resource Management, and as you can see that in 2011, 55% of employees responded that recognition by management is very important to their overall job satisfaction. So even in these tough economic times, employee recognition is very important. Even just a simple thank you or an email for a job well done can go a long way for employee recognition. Some of the recognition programs at the county, and I'm going to share some statistics, just how many employees have been touched by some of these programs. The service recognition program is those employees that are recognized at 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years of service with a gift from the Board of Commissioners. Last year we did add an option for the Downtown Traverse City gift card, which has been very well received. So far 94 employees have chosen that option since that was put into place. We have let's see, the Service Anniversary Program. Employees are recognized for each year of service they provide to the county, not just during the milestone years, but during all the other years as well. And a note card is presented from the department head or manager to the employee. This year we've had 347 note cards sent so far. Devoted Service Awards. This is for employees that are retiring from the county or leaving after 15 or more years of service. And so far this year, we've had 3 options of, we have a clock that you can pick, a frame photo, 2 employees picked that, and then 3 photo appreciation cards have also been sent. Caught Doing It Right program. This is a program where employees are recognized by their coworkers for something well done. And we can always use more of these, so any employees that are listening, feel free to.
And I encourage commissioners to send those in as well. If you see someone doing a good job, shoot an email over to the Human Resources Department and just say, hey, this so-and-so did a really good job, or I got courteous service and I respect that. And it goes a long ways. It doesn't cost the county anything, but it reaps benefits.
So far, 18 employees this year have been recognized under that program by their peers or their managers or even people from other departments or commissioners. We've also added a few new programs this year. We have a Volunteer of the Year, which was done back in April. If you remember, George Champlin, through the Veterans, was nominated by his peers for that award. And then we also have a coworker appreciation event that's done every year in December. And donut holes are distributed throughout the county just to thank everyone for your coworker appreciation. The team has also organized presentations showing appreciation and gratitude for individuals like Ross Childs, who headed up the Department of Public Works during a leave for the county. So all those things are coordinated by the recognition team. Here are a few more. Applause is a program where employees are recognized for their specific achievements, such as national recognition, honors, awards, certifications that they've received, and as well as letters from the public. We've got about 15 of those so far this year. The Suggestion Award Program. This is the program where employees can submit suggestions to improve something here at the county. The ATM out front was actually started from an employee's suggestion. That employee actually left before her suggestion was implemented, but again, it was another suggestion that was formed from employees at the county. And then the Asset Relocation Program, this is one that our Resource Recovery Department, Kim Elliott, really does a great job of leading, and employees can utilize supplies from various departments and basically recycle them among different departments. So if one department has a filing cabinet that they no longer need, but another department might need it, they could recycle it among county departments, and it's for county use only. But we've had 21 of the 40 supplies have been recycled and reused between county departments. Let's see.
Challenges. No report is good unless we talk about the challenges we face. Getting the message out that recognition is important. It's really easy to just go through day-to-day motions and forget to say you did a good job to somebody. Keeping the ideas fresh so it's not just the same. Once again, just doing the motions, just going through things over and repetitively. Finding ways supervisors can recognize their employees easily and at low cost. It's no secret. We've got budget issues, and so how do you make somebody feel recognized, with a low budget? That's a challenge. And keeping morale up and loyalty during tough economic times, like we've been going through. And encouraging employees who are doing or expecting to do more with less, which our county, I believe, has done a great job over the last few years of doing more with less. And we wanted to end with a good quote, and this one's by Charles Schwab. I consider my ability to arouse enthusiasm among men the greatest asset I possess. The way to develop the best that is in a man is by appreciation and encouragement. And any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we appreciate the efforts of the team because, it takes someone to coordinate these services and keep track of it because none of us take time to do it, so we appreciate their help. This brings us to the consent calendar. Linda, will you read the consent calendar, please?
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval is approved by a single committee action adopting the consent calendar. A, receive and file. 1, Commission on Aging monthly program reports. A, in-home services. B, senior center services. C, story of the month. D, Commission on Aging Board and Committee meeting minutes for September. 2, Community Corrections Report, August. 3, Veteran Services Monthly Activity through August 2011 and minutes. B, approve 1, Commission on Aging Senior Transportation Donation. 2, Grand Traverse Sheriff's Office Surplus Vehicle. 3, Grand Traverse Sheriff's Office Mobile Data Terminals to be declared surplus for auction.
Having heard the consent calendar, is there any of these items that the audience wishes to have pulled from the consent calendar? Georgia?
I'd like to have pulled item D1.
B1.
I mean, 1B?
No, B1.
No, B1, which is Commission on Aging Senior Transportation Donation.
Oh, all right.
Probably wants to expand on that.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to have an item pulled? Commissioners wishing to have items pulled?
I have a question, but not on one of these subjects, but I have a question from Commission on Aging, so it's not on
I
one of
have
these.
one of those two, so we'll get to that when we get
Okay.
there. Okay.
All right, I'll move that the consent calendar be approved with the exception of B1.
Support.
Motion by Inman, supported by Henschel, to approve the consent calendar with the exception of item B1. All those in favor say aye.
Roll call.
Aye.
Roll call.
I'm sorry, roll call vote.
Commissioner Inman?
I know better.
Yes.
Henschel?
Yes.
Lemko?
Yep.
Richardson?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yep.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Gilman?
Yes.
Chairman Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, we will go ahead and we will discuss the item that was removed from the agenda, or the consent calendar. Georgia, if you want to come up and speak to this issue.
Georgia Durga, Director, Grand Traverse County Commission on Aging. The reason why I asked to pull this item was we had a slight change in this. It was a donation from an anonymous donor, and initially she had donated $50,000 for transportation, but we asked if we could move 10 into home heating for seniors, and she agreed to that. So we're requesting that you allow us to accept the donation for $50,000, but 10 for heating and 40 for transportation.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion by Limcool, supported by Max Bauer, to approve the acceptance of the $50,000 donation, $40,000 to be used for the Senior Transportation Fund, and $10,000 for the Emergency Heating Fund. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Takes care of that. Georgia, while you're here, Herb had something he wanted to ask about?
Yeah, I've had 3 different people talk to me about the loss of the foster grandparent program, and they're very concerned about that you're not going to continue funding that for this next year. And so, I said I would bring it up for today's meeting and ask, what the reasoning for that is, and whether or not there's a way to be able to salvage that particular program, because it really allows some people to become very active in the community that wouldn't be normally.
Well, actually, we never funded the foster grandparent, but we funded the senior companion program.
Senior companion,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And the reason why we did that was in order to continue funding our own operations, we cut all our funding to outside agencies. Meals on Wheels came back to us, and we reinstated part of the funding that we gave to them, not all of it. And then Senior Companion came back, and our board decided to stay status quo, but they're going to review it again in February, see what kind of, if we have any fund balance left over from this year, and see where we're at the end of this year.
So my concern is that, we're supposed to be providing senior programs out there, and these are programs that are working extremely well. Meals on Wheels, Senior Companion, all of these outside organizations are providing services, and I think it's a philosophical difference maybe in how things are being run. And so I just wanted to bring up the fact that there's a lot of concern out there that they feel that this is the wrong direction for the Commission on Aging to be going.
Go ahead.
Please.
Stacy Isles, I am a board member for the Commission on Aging. Every single board member that sits on the Commission on Aging feels that these programs are worthwhile. The problem is that there's only so much money in the pot, and when we're looking at cutting our own programs versus funding outside agencies, we're funding our own programs first. Not that the other programs aren't important, it's just that something had to give in order to balance our budget. We are concerned. A couple of our board members also received telephone calls relative to the same subject. We are planning to review that as soon as we know for sure how much money we have to spend.
I had a call on the same subject.
We're getting calls.
I received 2 different calls, 2 different people, 2 different parents. One of them had a 97-year-old mother who has a senior companion, and, you know, they don't know what they're going to do because the family members all work, and who's going to watch after her during the daytime when they go to work. So, you know, it was a very valuable program. She's been on it for a number of years, and, you know, and I said, well, I too will ask the question, but
We did address this at our last meeting, and we have committed to re-looking at it as soon as we know what our budget status is. And again, it is something that I think everyone feels is valuable. We just, you know, at the core, we're dealing with our programs first.
Chris?
So one of the issues that came up was the fact that, you know, a month ago, you sat before us looking for wages for the employees and the administrator, and yet you're cutting programs in order to be able to fund it. That was their concern.
Chris?
We, like county government, only have so many dollars to spend. We are prioritizing, and we have committed to relooking at this in
Good.
November.
Okay. I
No,
appreciate that.
February.
February?
November.
I'd heard November twice,
Oh,
so.
November.
Okay.
because we don't have our budget. Well, maybe it was both then, because,
Anyway,
Ross?
anyway,
How much money was cut out of the budget for this?
10,000. Well, totally out of the budget?
No, no, I mean for this
senior.
program.
10,000.
10,000.
However, we doubled it from the year before because we had extra funds in our fund balance, but now we're at a point where we aren't going to have those funds anymore, so we wouldn't have given them the full 10 this year anyways.
How
Next
many
year.
people are participating in the program?
20. I'm pretty sure they said 20
I
clients.
thought there was more than that.
No, because we've had 10 clients for a long, long time, and then when we gave them more money, they bumped it up to 20. And then I think there might have been 3 additional people, so it might have been 23 clients.
And I would like to address just very briefly, and I don't have all of the background on this subject, so you'll have to forgive me, but the idea of seeking wage increases and reclassification for some of our employees, it's my understanding that this request goes back many years before I was on the board. So it's not something that, this was a request before we found ourselves in this budget crisis. And beyond that, we feel, at least I feel, I guess I can't speak for the entire board, okay? But I do feel that if our people are not compensated adequately for the work that they do, and their work has been significantly increased with bringing aboard the senior center, that we won't be able to keep the quality people that we need to give the quality services that we provide to the senior citizens of our county. So that's, I guess we'll take that as my statement, not the board's statement, but that's my rationale for what's happening.
Just wanted it brought up.
What does it cost for a person to live in a nursing home per month?
Depends on the nursing home, but the number we've been using is 60,000. That's probably an old,
Yeah.
for a year, 60,000 for a year.
Yeah,
Not a
we're
Assisted
talking,
living about $3,800 a month.
I think it's worthy of pointing out that this is a worthy investment of tax dollars, because for $500 a year, you can help a person stay in their own home. They're not in a nursing home that would cost that much more. And if the person doesn't have the funds to pay for themselves, in some way or another, we're all paying for it.
Absolutely.
Okay, any further
One day
questions?
we'll
on
be
this
all in
regard?
the same boat.
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
Can
We're getting
I have
closer
a
to
couple
everything.
more announcements that I want to make, because now the time, or should I wait?
I guess you're there, go ahead.
First, I wanted to introduce our new Deputy Director, Holly DeWalt. Holly, if you want to
do.
stand
Welcome.
up. She started September 12th, so she will be helping with the office operations of the in-home services. Also, I wanted to let you know that our strategic planning session that was scheduled for October 26th, the time has changed from a 3 p.m. start time to a 2 p.m. start time, so we can get out an hour earlier to accommodate the county commissioners, because there's a county board meeting that night. So we're moving it back 1 hour and getting out 1 hour earlier, so it'll be 2 to 6. And another FYI, the senior center also received an anonymous donation that they're $5,000 that they're using to purchase a Clavinova piano to be used for different events and for their dances. So, and the Commission on Aging Board accepted that yesterday at their board meeting.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
This brings us to the Sheriff's Office. First item is the resolution from the Village of Kingsley that you find in your packet.
Good evening, I'm Nate Elger, representing the Sheriff's Department. I did not send this letter to you. I am familiar with its contents and the rationale behind it, however, so I'm speaking to it. Basically, state law mandates the Sheriff's Office provide law enforcement services to every unincorporated area within the county. The Village of Kingsley is incorporated, obviously. They do not have a law enforcement entity, and we have provided law enforcement services to them since probably before I was born. So we're asking that the Board of Commissioners consider this resolution and adopt it. We always have, and in our opinion, always will provide law enforcement services to the Village of Kingsley. It's not been a handshake agreement. It's not even been mentioned. It's just been taken for granted that we were going to do it. This piece of legislation came to our attention about a year or so ago through other means when we were discussing potential services to the city. The village became aware of this and believed that they should ask for this resolution.
I see. So this is more of a housekeeping
Yes.
issue?
So we got to do this for Fife Lake too?
It is possible, yes. They do have a contract.
They have to request it?
They have to request it. The law does not say we can't do it. The law says we have the option, so to speak, in any incorporated area.
Ross?
So we can assume that there won't be any change in the service that you've already been providing?
No, there will not be any change at this point. They are, however, considering the addition of a CPO, which would be great.
Jason?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the resolution offered.
Second.
Motion by Gilman, supported by Henschel. Further discussion? Larry?
I'm just wondering, rather than delaying another month of county commissioner reports to our district, of course, Rob and I are going to Fife Lake, the village of Fife Lake, and I don't know who else might be involved in this thing. I think that would be it, wouldn't it?
The village of Fife Lake and the village of Kingsley, yes.
And we have the village of Kingsley here. If you could get a hold of Noreen, the village president, and give her a heads up on this, and
I can do
maybe she can just get it on the agenda, and you can be happy. We'll just get out there and get it done rather than trying to report it and delay it another month.
Very good.
Okay.
Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
The next item has to do with the additional item on the agenda tonight, jail fees project presentation. Sergeant Ritter said he would pay the difference. He's going to skip one meal a day, so he can afford it, you know.
Don't pick on him. Because I said so.
I've been picking on him for
Yeah,
30
no.
years. I can get away with it.
Good evening. I'm Captain Bob Hall. I'm the jail administrator, and this is Sergeant Todd Ritter. He's the administrative sergeant at the Grand Traverse County Jail. As we continue to struggle with budgets, as you do, we look at our budget. There's two sides of our budget. There's the expenditures, and we believe we've pared it down as much as we can pare it down and keep it safe and secure. The other side of the budget is the revenues. The jail has never been known as a big revenue creator. It's not why we're in business, is to make money. However, the jail has generated revenue over the years. In analyzing the revenue in recent years, we've noticed a trend. It's falling off. So I charged Sergeant Ritter to contact other counties and find out where they're at with jail revenues, housing fees, recouping monies from the inmates for various functions in the jail. And he came back with some very interesting information that we want to share with the board. So you're on it.
Good evening. What is prisoner reimbursement? Where do we get the authority to do it? And what kind of increases can we expect? How are we going to do it, or some of the things we're going to look at? And notice in your packet there are lots of slides with some legalese in it that I'm going to kind of breeze through. The Prisoner Reimbursement Act is what we've been using to bill and collect fees all along. Now we want to talk about some additional sections under the Act to enhance our collection efforts. Under Section 2, this gives us the authority to take action to collect fees. Under Section 3 that you have there, currently we charge, this is as of March 15th of '08, $20 a day for general population and work release, $40 a day for volunteer boarders, and $60 a weekend for weekenders. We waive inmate worker fees. The actual cost of an inmate is roughly $54 a day, and the law allows us to collect up to $60 a day.
Could you clarify that for me again? $20 per day?
Yep, for both work release or general housing inmates.
And then $40 was what?
Is for a voluntary boarder. That'd be somebody that's sentenced to another county.
Oh,
but would
a
prefer
boarder.
Yep.
Okay, okay.
Prefer to do their time here.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Before seeking fees from any inmate, we have to get a financial history on them. The jail's been doing this for years. We do a financial history form on every intake for every inmate we book into the facility. We currently do not provide a list of prisoner information that is required under the statute to the county board because it's never been requested. However, that information is all readily available at the jail if you guys ever choose to request it. But it is something that's listed under the section to provide to you. Under Section 5, it says inmates of the county jail are required by law to pay their fees. And this is where the sheriff gets his allowance of good time, can take or give good time, specifically for failure to pay housing fees. Under Section 6, this gives the county board the authority to investigate what information the jail uses to collect fees. If for some reason you had a question as to why or how we charge somebody, you could always request that information from us. Under Section 7, this sets the statute of limitations on the collection of fees. We can actually file civil suits on inmate upon release for up to 6 years after the release from jail.
Do you?
We do not currently. Currently, we don't file any lawsuits.
Why?
Well, that's one of the things we're looking at changing. Under 801.87, this states that the civil suits are actually filed in the name of the county, not the sheriff's department or the jail.
Who has to show up to the court on that?
The
If the county's doing it.
The way it works is the prosecuting attorney's office, and we'll cover this in just a second, but the prosecuting attorney's office is actually the signer of the suit for all suits. And then they can appoint a representative, which would be what we're asking a member from the jail to go over and actually handle the suits.
I thought maybe Larry was going to have to do it.
Under 801.87, this is where the financial statement comes into play. We want to collect our fees, however, we want to be fair and reasonable when doing so. A money judgment allows us to capture a debt in our inmate accounting software. Once we have a judgment against an inmate, we can put that debt in our system. That debt's there, and every time an inmate deposits funds, we can take up to 95 or 100% of that if we choose, until that judgment's been satisfied. Getting judgments against inmates also allows us to file executions against properties that the inmates have to collect those fees. Under this section, we can take legal action while they're still in jail. We can actually file suit before somebody gets out if we get a payment arrangement from them while they're in jail and they fail to meet that arrangement. This also helps us prevent an inmate from signing over or selling off any property or possessions before we can address what we want to address with them. If that becomes an issue, it also allows the court to sign a third party to make sure that the property's handled all correctly until we've resolved our debts with them. Basically, under Section 9, it says we can take action against pretty much anything they have except for their home. Their home is off limits. Under this section, it discusses the venue of the cases to be filed. If it's an inmate or a former inmate from the county jail, the suit to be filed in the district the jail is located. If the inmate is sent to prison and we're trying to get fees from them after they've been sent to prison, we actually have to file in the district in which the prison is located, that county. Under this section, it says the judges and sheriffs must assist the prosecuting attorney in seeking reimbursement. The prosecuting attorney signs off on all the suits, as I said. I had a meeting with the prosecuting attorney's office a couple weeks ago. They're on board with this and are willing to actually assist us in doing the paperwork, filing suits, and following through with whatever we need to do. Under this section, it allows the collected reimbursement all to be credited toward the county general fund. So any fees that we do recuperate, all are just general fund fees. So why are we here and what are we proposing to the county? We're looking to hire a full-time collections agent. It's the only way we're going to achieve some of the things we just discussed.
I might, to answer your question, the reason we haven't done this, whoever's going to do this has to do a lot of research to find out what the assets are, to see if the person was honest in their financial statement to us. We have been told in the past that the person had absolutely no money. When we got out, we found out he had like 4 motorcycles, 3 cars, 2 snowmobiles, and everything that he forgot to tell us about.
Yeah.
That all takes time to do all that. And then to do the filing in the courts and to handle the case from front to end takes a lot of time.
Okay, so why do we think it'll work? Because it has a proven track record in other counties and local municipalities. Macomb County is kind of been the leading county in the state for jail fees collections. They've gone around and actually presented programs all over the state and actually in a national level, and people are modeling this program. In 1985, they started using the same aggressive tactics we intend to utilize to collect their housing fees. Through 2009, they were collecting over $1 million a year. 2010 budget constraints, they had to cut their work release program, so that has dropped significantly. However, they're still collecting 34% of their general housing fees. A look at what they're actually collecting over the past 10 years prior to 2009. As you can see, the yellow jagged line is actual dollar amounts collected for their work release fees. The orange bold line that runs through that is just a trend line. At the bottom, you see the actual numbers in hundreds of thousands collected in general housing fees with the bold line running through that for a trend line. Of course, it's not on the rise every year, but you can see the trend. Once they started a progressive collections program, it's been a trend of increase. The 86th District Court locally started a formal collections department. In 2002, they hired a full-time person to start collecting for court fees. The full-time person's job was solely focused on outstanding receivables and set up payment arrangements with defendants who could not pay their fees in full the day of sentencing. This effort was very successful. They've been collecting nearly $500,000 a year. Revenues have remained pretty steady in all 3 counties, even in this recession. So where do we stand right now? In Grand Traverse County, unfortunately, we've seen a downturn in our revenue. The work release revenue, which we relied on in the past, just isn't there anymore with alternative sentencing. Our number of work release has dramatically decreased over the past 10 years with programs like community corrections and such. We must try something new to begin collecting more of our general housing fees. Here are some numbers over the past 5 years that we have turned over to our Core Recovery is our collection agency that we're using. Just looking at last year, we turned over $575,868 and some change to Core Recovery. On that $575,000, they collected $14,963. Their collection fee was 30% of that, which was $4,489, and we recouped $10,474. That's less than 3%.
It's pathetic. I'm sorry.
And you know, you can see that trend has been pretty consistent the last 5 years. As of September 20th this year, we've billed $378,542 in general housing fees and $63,986 in work release fees. As of that date, we'd collected $28,306% or $6 or 7% in general housing fees and $37,242 or 58% in work release fees.
Is this a cumulative for the year?
Yes, for this year through September 20th.
Thank you.
So we're at roughly 14% of our total housing right now. An increase of 13% in collections alone in general housing fees to take us to 20% would be an additional revenue of $52,586 this year. Macomb County, if you go back and you look at their numbers, they realized a 10% increase in what they were collecting almost annually until they got to that 36% mark.
So the program takes a couple years.
It takes a couple years to get rolling to where you're at a 34, 35%, but even as, like I said there, at a 13% increase, you're in the black. Here's a look at the actual dollars and cents that we were discussing earlier. You can see our trend lines have been progressively going down. If you take over the next 2 years a 10% increase projection, 10% per year to get us to around the 23%, you know, it's an increase of roughly $125,000 a year in collection of just general housing fees. So what are some of the tactics we intend to try to utilize? These are some of the most successful tactics that Macomb County recommends and has used and are teaching people to use. One is combining previous billings and current billings to divide them into manageable payments for inmates. Another program is offering reduced fees for incarcerated inmates that are willing to pay their fees in full prior to their release. So actually someone's sitting down with them, making out a payment arrangement, and then making sure they follow that payment arrangement. Once you have that signed payment arrangement, that's where you can actually take and file a civil lawsuit against them while they're still incarcerated. That goes back to their original fees, not the amended fees for their reduction. We can file individual or group lawsuits against inmates for failing to keep payment arrangements. We can look at garnishing wages, bank accounts, and tax returns. File and collect with execution against property such as vehicles, boats, should say more motor homes, the mobile homes, and such. Any returning inmates with outstanding judgments, take 95% of all deposits automatically. Failure to pay work release fees once is an immediate removal from the program. Generally, we allow a little more leeway in that here. Drawing a harder line should increase that work release revenue as well. One of the other things they realized a good increase with is instead of utilizing one collection agency, they're using multiple collection agencies. And every 2 months, they'll have their entire account transferred to another collection agency. And they'll use 3 or 4. That way they're getting 3 or 4 times the activity on their collections for the things they couldn't collect on that they turned over versus just sitting there for it to get rolled through whatever collection agency accounts that has. How are we going to do it? Someone's going to have to manage this program. We just don't have the time. We don't have the staffing to do it right now. This is going to take someone full-time dedicated to sit down and keep track of this, to file the lawsuits, to make sure that people are staying on top of the arrangements that they make with us.
Questions? Jason?
I guess I have a number of questions. One of them is, as far as dropping revenues, are we dropping revenues because we have less full beds? I mean, or is it just, they're just not paying now more?
It's both.
It's both. It's both.
It's both.
And that being the case now, we're in a situation, obviously, the times are tough. Some jobs are scarce. I think there's plenty of work out there for people to work, but we're obviously not, typically the population that we have in our jail is not the full-time employed, strong family type. And in some of these situations, if we go after and we start pulling from their resources when they can't afford it, are we then putting them back at risk, or are we putting our community at risk for them trying to recover it in some way?
You know, I mean, I don't buy into the you're poor, so you become a criminal thing, but they're already criminal, you know, I mean, if that's the case.
That's what this person would do. We have people now that we write off their housing because we've determined them to be indigent.
Right.
And we've been burned a few times where we found out later on they really aren't indigent. They presented what appeared to be indigency. We declared them indigent, we didn't bill them. Found out later they are, we reestablished the funding, but then we don't have the time to track them around and find out what their assets are.
And then there's the other side of this too, though. There is the other side of this, because if, for example, and that's good, and I support that kind of approach, because then you can actually determine, okay, can we go after this person? Is this going to backfire on us by doing this? At the same time, we also have the 14th Amendment. And if one person thinks that they've been singled out more unfairly than another person, that could come back to haunt us.
Exactly, and that's all based on having the time to sit down and analyze the true status of this particular person as to whether or not it's fair to go after them either in court or execute their property and latch onto that or not. You need to have the time to be able to do that, to make sure that you're doing it fairly and equitably.
Larry?
I briefly talked to the sheriff last night after the Acme Township Board meeting, had some time to think about it. Couple things come to mind. One is that I'm not sure if the county administrator did mention this to the board or not. I thought he did as a part of the budget. But in all fairness, he is not here, obviously, tonight, because he doesn't deserve a vacation here and there. I certainly am in support of moving forward with some type of program or structure that allows us to collect fees and maximize our effort in the area. And as I explained to the sheriff, we had started a similar program on I don't think it started out full-time, but ended up being part-time. And I'm not sure exactly what the status of it is right now, but, you know, the circuit court had a program going where they were attempting to collect court fees and those kinds of things. And I guess thinking this through is Dennis had wanted to think about the possibility of having one collection department within the county, and within the county, certain individuals would be responsible, for example, the circuit court collection, district court collection, and they may be now the sheriff's department collection. And so it's coordinated all within one area. And I presented an example to the sheriff last night. Let's just say they have unpaid court costs, and as a part of their release, they have to pay the court costs or they come back to jail. Well, what's that individual going to do? He's going to pay the court costs first and then come back and try to readdress you later. And if he's getting a separate phone call from you guys saying, you know, you're not paying your fees and we're coming after all your assets, he's going to say, well, wait a minute here, I got to finish one before I can do the other, and we got to have a coordinated, maybe a coordinated effort might make some level of sense. But so my suggestion here tonight is, I think I'm very encouraged by the concept. I think we should be doing it, and certainly we can model our efforts after Macomb County if they do it differently within their own department or whatever. But since the county administrator is part of the task of that the county board does give him in terms of management of people and recommendations of structure within county government, I would like to suggest that the board have a conversation with Dennis Aloya regarding this and see if we can come up with some consensus or recommendation about how we can go about doing it. So that would be my suggestion for the board tonight is to see if there's a level of encouragement that we can move forward with it, meet with the county administrator, and come up with a consensus plan of how we're going to deal with it. You know, with all the different components of the criminal justice system that we have in place here at the county.
Dean, as part of the budget process, we talked about creation of what Larry's describing, some sort of a collection agency. We couldn't get a consensus amongst the courts of doing it. do you have any comment in this regard at this
Well,
time?
Dennis did mention the issues with doing that in his budget memo. It was explained briefly, but we did discuss that with each of the courts. When we met with the sheriff and his staff, we asked the sheriff to investigate this and bring it back and to make a presentation. So I can't speak for Dennis, but I know I support this, and I believe Dennis would as well. We don't have all of the details worked out at this point, but I'm sure Dennis would want to take a look at this when he gets back and keep it moving forward if we can.
Okay, Chris?
Captain, this has worked elsewhere, correct?
Yes, very successfully.
And so my question to the board is, why wouldn't we try it now? I mean, we don't have to keep doing it. Why wouldn't we try it? I do agree with Commissioner Inman that we need to wait until our administrator is back, but I want you to know, on the concept, I'm supportive.
Yeah, that's cool.
Jason?
Just because I don't have a copy of the handout, what was the total that you had as far as what we billed out this year?
For this year?
Yeah.
As of September 20th, we've billed $378,542 in general housing.
And then what have we received so far?
64.
28,306.
Okay, and typically, what have we been getting? I mean, obviously, it's been going less and less, but percentage-wise, have we been getting 10%, 12%?
No, we're around the 4 to 5% range.
Okay. The reason I asked, and this is like 7%, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Correct.
The reason I ask is how much more do we expect to get? And if you're using the Macomb model, for example, what was the percentage increase that they were looking at?
They increased to 30, they're still maintaining 34%.
34%. So basically, then adding another $60,000 based on our current numbers, that would be about $60,000 that we'd expect to bring in more if we were to get to the 30% mark from where we're at today. And so the cost then of hiring a person full-time would have to obviously be less than the $60,000.
But also, you're looking at only current billing. You're not looking at outstanding billing as well. This person would also be trying to collect on outstanding billing from previous year.
Todd, do you have an approximation of what that 6-year accumulation is?
The 6-year accumulation is roughly what's...
Well, you can see each year the amount that we've turned over to core.
And what's been collected. So it'd be minus what's been collected on each of these years. And I don't have that figure readily available, but I could add it up.
We have nowhere to go but up.
That's true.
The last I heard, roughly, Commissioners, we have $1.2 million outstanding billing.
Sitting out there.
Sitting out there to be collected on.
And are you reasonably sure we'd be able to collect that?
Some.
Yes,
mean,
more than what we're doing now.
30% of that.
More than what we're doing now with nothing on it.
That's our
Right now,
target.
we're collecting 2% of it.
Well, I mean, more than what we're collecting now is certainly an admirable goal, but if we are spending more to collect...
I understand.
I mean, that's where I just want to make sure that the numbers check.
I don't think it's unreasonable to expect, it wasn't just Macomb. Do you remember the other counties that were using that model? And they were in the 30 to 35% range too. They were around 5, 6, 7%. When they switched to these strategies and aggressively sought the money, they jumped up to 30, 35%.
They consistently saw a 10% increase per year. And now there were some years, you'll see even in Macomb's, where they had dips where they were figuring things out, trying different things that didn't work. But when you look at over the period, the trend is it's a steady increase until they reach the 34, 35, 36%, and they're maintaining it.
And the last thing, and I hate to monopolize the time, but just the last thing, and Macomb County obviously is a much larger deal. They hired multiple people, or?
They started with one.
They started with one.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we know that we saw in our court collections, the numbers went up significantly when we assigned someone to collect that money. Ross?
Yeah, that was my question, and of course my question's to Dean, because we have both a collection person in circuit court and a separate collection person in district court. And do you know what the percentage that they collect there?
Not off the top of my head. We can provide you with that information, but
And my question is, because I think we've had, many of us have had discussions about this with Dennis, and he was talking about whether it's possible to combine the collection function in, one or two people and, spread that out. I mean, the difference between what you're looking at and I think and what the courts look at is the courts are probably looking at, overall a little more affluent, populace maybe than people who have been in prison and jail. I mean, I could be wrong on that. But it just seems like we ought to explore ways that we can utilize resources we already have before we jump in and start, hiring more people.
Chris?
Well, I think that we need to be open and we need to try. And if there's an avenue that we can take and try it and it doesn't work, okay, we can stop. But at least let us look at trying.
Herb?
Yeah, I really want to support this, but I have some issues with this because, we have a lot of people that are in poverty. And they're the ones that seem to be dragged into our system and continually spiral down. And I'm concerned about the collaboration between the courts. If I have a friend of the court payment that has to be paid first, the children is the most important thing. And, I need to make sure that when we start looking at this, the state of Michigan imposed a $1,000 fee for driver's license for people who lost their driver's license. What it's done is it's put a lot of drivers out on our highway without driver's licenses. And that's very concerning to me because they can't afford it. They can't make those payments. They can't make the friend of the court. They can't make their court payments. Now we're going to be charging, we are charging a fee for that. Now we're going to be going out and dinging them for that. And so it just continues to spiral down their ability to even be able to see ahead of it, so therefore they give up. And they continue to be part of our system. And that's the wrong way for us to be doing it.
I agree. And if I may, one of the things that I learned in researching this is the type of people you're talking about that come to jail and they're like, I don't even know how I'm going to pay this fee now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. These aren't the people we're taking to court. These aren't the people we're filing injunctions on. These aren't the people we're suing. These are the people we're coming to and saying, hey, we know you can't pay $4,000 to stay here. Tell you what, you give us $600 by your out date because looking at your history coming in here, you spend almost that in a year on candy. You give us that $600 towards a bill and we're going to wipe this out.
Or on cigarettes.
Right. You walk out of here, you don't have to worry about this bill anymore. Mm-hmm. And we're not taking from their family, we're not taking their property. That's why we use this financial information. We can look at who has this ability, and the people that have the ability that aren't paying us, we're going to go after them with everything we can. Those that don't have the ability to even pay the bill they have while they're in there, we're going to work as diligently as we can to reduce that bill to a manageable payment or a manageable amount that they pay prior to getting out.
But the problem is they're going to pay you before they pay the rent.
We won't let that happen.
Before they pay the utilities.
If they have a legal obligation to a spouse,
Legal or
minor
moral.
children, dependents, or other obligation, that comes first.
Okay.
But that's what this person has to determine.
Those are my concerns about this whole process, and, I just hope that we can continue to work through this. I really agree with trying to figure out how do we get a single collection agency within our county to be able to work our ways toward that direction. If the people have an obligation to the county, we need to collect it. But on the same token, we can't continue to push these people further into poverty, and so that they aren't paying their child support, they aren't paying their other bills that need to be paid within the community.
We agree. Commissioner, there have been some people that have come through our system that I would deem affluent, maybe not affluent according to society, but certainly in comparison to the rest of the inmate population. They've not paid a penny, and when they get time to release, we exercise the option of removing their good time. Good Time makes them stay an additional several more days worth of housing, several more days of expense to the county, and they get out saying, I didn't have to pay a thing. We try to collect it, we're not able to collect it, we turn it over to collection, and you see what the collection agency is able to do. There are other methods and avenues that we want to explore to be able to go after some of those people and get the money.
That brings up my final question is, what is it that we're going to be doing that a collection agency isn't doing or can't do? And that, I'd love to be able to hear the collection agency's response as part of this.
I have that answer.
Yeah, I don't know.
Go ahead.
The answer is they have multiple clients that are pressing as hard as we would be pressing, and quite frankly, they have a teledialer system, and they just load everybody up, and they're just dialing whoever hits the phone, they pick up, and they're gonna hit it. They're not necessarily gonna go after judgments. They're not necessarily gonna do the background. What assets do they own with the Secretary of State? They're just working on a teledialer. So I think that's the difference that you're gonna see.
I'd still like to hear Chuck's comment from
And the caller ID, that
court.
people don't pick up the phone on the other end.
And more importantly, they're only collecting on the people that we just had no collection from whatsoever and have turned over. They're not addressing the people that are in jail that aren't paying anything now. Which is a huge part of this.
What do you figure this one employee would cost, for example?
I have no idea at this point.
I don't either. Whatever is in line with what the other collections people are.
So somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000.
I'm guessing.
Kind of a widespread. Okay. Way I look at this is the numbers make sense. The modeling is there. Other counties are doing it. It's working for them. Most likely it will work for us unless we do something really wrong. But it's going to take some startup capital because you got to pay that employee.
But there'll be some startup costs. I'm sure there's going to be a computer, probably files, something. But
okay. Dean, looking at next year's budget, how would we accomplish that? Is it possible to borrow against some fund, or knowing that statistically this does pay back?
Well, generally what you would do is you'd look at, obviously we have to determine the classification and the cost of this FTE, and it would be probably overly optimistic or even wrong to assume that in year one you're going to fully fund that cost. So that means there is a budget impact, but I would think that in a $37 to $37.5 million budget, we can cover that initially to get this program up and running, and I would hope that you guys would let us look into it a little further.
Well, I'd be open to seeing some numbers.
Chris?
Well, I wasn't going to say this, but it's a matter of public record. I have rentals, and I had a condo, Commissioner Lemkool, and I have to tell you, it was trashed. $4,000 worth of damage in 2 months. And I did not give up. There was an avenue for me to recoup my losses. And I have to believe, based upon my own experience, and I did not target somebody in poverty. This was somebody with a job that could pay me, and eventually did pay me. But I think that's what the captain is talking about. And I think we need to go, I think there's an opportunity here for people to pay what they owe. And that's it.
I don't disagree with it.
All right, well.
Jason?
I'd like to make a motion that we have Ritter and the administrator get together, calculate the costs for this particular position, and bring it back to the board for a decision.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion. Ross?
Would you be willing to add to that a discussion of, what our experience has been with the court systems?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
And having one collector throughout the whole county.
Yeah, just
the structure.
I
don't want to add.
You're not going to get the courts to agree to that. We've already been there and had that discussion. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But we have a motion made and seconded. Is there further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
Good motion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob and Todd, when Dennis gets back, we'll give him something to do, you know.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
right.
sure he's gonna be fully rested. He's not even gonna wanna go home at night.
Oh,
He's just gonna be
boy.
here to help us get these problems taken care of. All right.
Chairman,
Okay.
could I have a clarification? Was the motion amended to include the experience of the collection of the courts or not?
That's just data information
Oh,
that they will
no.
provide us with that
Thank you.
collection.
Yeah, if Dennis wants to bring that back, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item is the Grand Traverse Sheriff's Office in reference to Northern Lakes Community Mental Health. And I suppose the captain and the sergeant would like to speak to that issue also.
Well, what I wanted to
Mr.
preface
Cooney,
with,
I think you have a chair over there, because I think you're going to enter into this discussion too.
He's sitting back there trying to
Yeah,
avoid
well,
it.
I'm not going to let him hide in the back corner.
a couple of weeks ago,
Bob, you can
our-
have a seat right in the microphone
You
if
can
you
set,
want.
you've got a mic over there too, Bob, so.
Yeah,
Our
we have
inmate
your nameplate
population
out.
rose into the 170s. It's climbing again, so we're back approaching what we used to be. At any given time, I have a number of inmates in the jail that have anywhere from mild to medium to severe mental problems. And anywhere from just having difficulty coping with the situation to full-blown issues where they have to be either restrained or put into protective garb to protect them from themselves or from us from them. The only resource we have to provide assessment and treatment options for these people are the professionals from mental health. Our officers are not trained to be counselors, assess mental health assessment. They don't prescribe medications. They don't do any of that. We have to handle these inmates safely and securely and humanely in our facility. So we rely on the mental health professionals that come into the jail to tell us what we need to do with the people and why they're there. And why they're there, some of them, that's a different topic for a different day that's gone back for many years. But I've met with mental health over the years. Commissioner Wheelock and I have worked on this issue for many years. We used to get from the local mental health community professionals in our jail a lot more than we do today. Almost twice, if not 3 times more than what we do today. We even had a psychiatrist from the Mental Health Authority that would used to come in and deal with the inmate population. We even lost that. We had to go out and find another psychiatrist to come in and do that out of my operating budget. We met with mental health in 2009. We met with them again earlier this year and said, what services, what level of services do you feel we need in our jail to adequately deal with the inmate population on any given day? And we all agreed, they all agreed that it's a lot more than what we're getting now. So I said, well, why aren't we getting it? And they said, we cannot afford to do that. So it comes down to a money issue. Now, whether the money issue is an issue that is addressed with the enabling resolution that we've discussed for many years, or whether it's something that has to come from the board through my budget to support, my bottom line is I need to have the mental health professionals in the jail dealing with the inmates appropriately. I don't know how we're going to pay for it or who pays for it, but my concern is that it gets done.
I have a question. Mr. Cooney, have we contracted to have these services provided?
Well, we have through the authority. By creation of the authority, we're a partner with 5 other counties. We're not really in contracting with CMH, you have to understand. It's through the authority and our payments to the authority that those services are supposed to be provided. Okay.
Again, my question, have we contracted to have these services provided? It's
Yes.
Yes.
Through the authority.
Captain Hall, have we had these
I
services?
thought we had somebody else running something. Getting to your question, if I can ask, Mr. Chairman, my
Certainly.
understanding is that since Great Lakes Community Mental Health, or whatever, Northern Great Lakes Community Health is not providing those services, there's somebody coming into our jail that is doing the assessment when they are called, and obviously somebody is paying for that. That is, I
We
think, the question Commissioner.
Northern Lakes Community Mental Health has a person that comes into our jail on a daily basis for a few hours every day to do the initial assessments, to make the referrals, the ones that need serious mental health intervention, psychotropic medications or whatever, is referred to the psychiatrist that we had to go out and find to come into the jail out of my operating budget a couple hours, 2-3 hours a week to help do that service.
I'm not done.
Chris?
So I'm hearing from Mr. Cooney, we have contracted for these services. Captain Hall, are we receiving the services we contracted for, in your opinion?
No, not to the level that mental health says we should have.
Mr. Cooney, what can we do about this?
Well, I think it's more complicated than that, because the enabling resolution that we have with the authority does not specify what the services are. The services are those that the professionals find to be reasonable, and that's community mental health. We aren't in a position to say what is reasonable. What I do know is that apparently CMH themselves, as Captain Hall has indicated, have indicated that we do need the expertise of a psychiatrist on a regular basis. And again, it's more complicated than that, because as I understand it, the other counties are getting those services, but it's because they bring their inmates to the psychiatrist, as opposed to our county where we're contracting with a private doctor to come in because it's less expensive. That's my understanding.
I guess maybe, if you don't mind, I'm going
Go
to
ahead,
interject a
Sonny.
little bit, because obviously I've played this game a few times over the last 13 years. Captain Hall's exactly right. He and Lieutenant Monroe and I have met, and Nate has been there with Greg and his predecessor, and Boss, who provided services in our jail for many years, on multiple occasions. And by everyone's admission, we are not getting the service that we need. And I think everyone in this room has heard me complain about that for a long time.
Or we're paying for it.
But the problem is and what I think Bob was alluding to, Mr. Cooney was alluding to, was the fact that the enabling resolution says that they have to provide the reasonable services within the jail at no cost. And the question is, what becomes the required services in their jail? There's another little piece that comes in here, I believe it's a 2009 determination by the Attorney General, that all mental health services in the county jail are the responsibility of the county. And that was a resolution, or an Attorney General's opinion, that was pretty point blank. If you want mental health services in your jail in any form, the county is responsible to pay for it. We've always contended, and we've got multiple drafts and agreements. You have to remember, this thing started back, we're going back till the late 80s, when we had 80 hours worth of service in the jail. Now we get 20, if we're lucky. We admit, we know, and everyone else knows, that we're not getting enough service in our jail. Okay, the county, at Captain Hall's request, ponied up money themselves to try to help with some of that lack of service. We've looked at whether or not we can cut that $680,000 that we pay to mental health, and, we're going to get the annual report coming up here shortly, and they're going to tell us how many thousands of people receive mental health services in Grand Traverse County. But the fact is, whether they're serving all those people in the Grand Traverse County, I don't know. Is it because their clinics and their offices are here? I'm not sure where they determine the number of how many people receive service. The fact that I've said over and over again is we're not getting the inadequate amount of service in our jail. Larry?
I believe this conversation started at the end of the month board meeting last month, and it was graciously put forward by Commissioner Henschel as our representative, and we appreciate his report on that and some of his conclusions, which really kind of brought it home. for us. And so the suggestion from the board was, since it wasn't on the agenda, to refer it to the next Public Safety Committee meeting so we can have a thorough discussion on. Unfortunately, the administrator's not here during this week. But Dennis, prior to leaving the subject and the board agreeing to putting it on this agenda, had thought that perhaps a way to initially deal with this whole question is that if the board would give him direction to, and I'm just working on my memory here now, would give him direction to meet with the sheriff, Captain Hall, Bob Cooney, Greg Pathhouse, Commissioner Henschel, whoever he chooses would be the appropriate people to sit down and have a meeting on this issue and see if we can graciously or ungraciously come to a conclusion about how we're going to handle the mental health issue, whether we can get a reduction in the contract to cover the differential, or what the strategy behind how we're going to cover this service that's needed and the prior contract that has that vague language. So, and the other piece of that was, it's an old document, it's an older document. Maybe it needs to be revised or changed, I don't know. I know that the dollar amount was set for other particular reasons by the board initiating that contract, and I'll just briefly go over those in my mind, and I just wrote them down, and other commissioners might have a better memory on this, but they were part of the internal portion of the Grand Traverse County government, and by moving to an authority, the board felt that we were capping our annual payment because we knew we probably would be seeing future growth in Grand Traverse County, and that's where all the projections were, and we felt that that dollar amount would continue to increase. We were concerned about the state hospital closing and continued exposure on a local level, and having us fund that on a higher level. They did agree, as a portion of that agreement, to release us from the unfunded portion of the defined benefit program that was equated towards their employees, which was substantial in nature, and an understanding moving forward that if they acquired and constructed a new building among the 6 counties, that we would have no liability in the cost of the construction or the cost of operations of that building. And again, lastly, was this whole thing about we want you to provide services within the jail. Unfortunately, that was not clearly defined and broadly, and it was just broadly put in. But I think it is. I think perhaps Dennis did come up with an idea about what might be the feasible next step, and that is to address it with the internal people. Maybe have one initial meeting internally, come up with a strategy, and then meet with Greg Pathhouse, and then see if we can come up with an agreement. If we can't, then he could come back, and Bob and him can come, the group can come back with some kind of recommendation.
Ross?
So,
if I could ask some questions, because I'm still trying to figure this out now. So community mental health does come in and make assessments of prisoners.
Yes.
Are these assessments done by a psychiatrist or?
No.
Okay.
It's a trained, I don't know her title, it's Ann Boss that comes in, and I think she's a trained interviewer.
Okay.
For mental health. I don't know what her credentials are. She's not a psychologist.
But at some point, certain individuals, certain cases are deemed to require a higher level of care, service, or whatever.
That's true.
And those are the ones that we're paying for above and beyond what CMH does, correct?
That's correct.
Has there ever been a time when CMH dealt with those higher level cases?
Yes, up until just a few years ago they did. I don't remember the exact year, but all of a sudden CMH said they lost funding, or they couldn't afford to have a psychiatrist on staff be able to come into the jail anymore. We went for a period of time without one, and it became apparent we needed a psychiatrist, and they didn't have one, so we found one that was willing to come in. There is no written agreement or contract with this person. There's an agreement that when she comes in, she'll bill us X amount of dollars
So many
per
dollars
hour.
per hour, whatever, okay. And obviously CMH has psychiatrists either on staff or on contract.
Yes.
But they're not offered to us at any price, or?
Only if the person is a current CMH client will they see the individual, and we have to take the individual to their office, which we do on occasion. But if the person's not a current CMH client, they will not see them.
Really? So basically, we can't be the intake for a new case for them, is sort of what they're saying.
Herb?
Yeah, where does the mental health court fit into this? You know, don't we have a mental health court, and don't we automatically put some of our mental health patients into that system? And do they pay the cost of some of these services? And if not, why not?
Let me try to answer some of these. It's not an automatic. They have to meet certain criteria, and if they are referred into the mental health court and accepted, it doesn't come out of my operating budget, so I'm assuming Northern Lakes Community Mental Health pays for the person they have that deals with the mental health court, or the court's budget pays for it. They operate on a grant, I believe.
So those are separate people?
Yes.
Okay. Well, yeah, the other thing I think is really important to note that, you know, we're in this situation because of the state of Michigan. State of Michigan turned over all the mental health responsibility. About 85% of all the funding now comes from the federal. The federal government covers, you know, forces that, and then now we're part of that. The rules and regulations of the federal government, which creates the environment where we're at. You know, there were many years that we had a mental health or mental hospital here in Traverse City. We had over 3,000 people here. And when that closed, we knew that that was going to put a huge impact into our community. And it did. And general fund dollars were brought in to be able to take care of those people. And that, in turn, took care of some of the responsibilities that we had when people ended up in our jail. When the federalization come along, all of a sudden that took all that money away. And so the money that we pay them has to be matched for other services to be able to provide those services. And, you know, it's a real fine line on how you have to be able to put these things together. And I understand the mental health point of view. You know, if we start billing mental health for these services, they're going to start reducing the services that we're going to get because they only got so much money in the pot. And they have to be able to do this. Also, that there's a managed care authority that's part of a 9-county. It's not just a 6-county authority. We're part of the 6-county authority, but the managed care is done by a 9-county group of people that Northern Lakes manages. So it's a whole, you know, to me, when you start going into and understanding what they call is the pots of money, that how people can be used for, one person could get 3 different pots of money to be able to take care of services. That one person may not have any pot of money available to him to be able to do something else. And it's how they go through and bill it. When I was on that board, they spent 50 days of audits. That did not include preparation or taking care of all the after what they found and how do we resolve these issues. 50 days of audits. It's ugly. I mean, Uncle Sam is right on top of these people, and they can only do this and this and this. And that's where we get into the squeeze, because all of a sudden now we're trying to figure out how do we get paid for these services and without having to do it. And we may have to take it out of our general fund in order to be able to do it.
Commissioner Lemko, you're right. This is not a localized problem. This is systemic. A few years ago, I was asked to sit on a commission in Washington, D.C. to join 45 other jail administrators from across the United States to discuss funding priorities for the Bureau of Justice giving out jail improvement funds throughout the whole nation. We worked in small teams, and when we came back, we had to prioritize. Every single group had #1 priority, dealing with mental health issues in jails. It was just incredible. It's across the U.S.
It's huge.
Chris?
What I'm hearing, Commissioner Lemkool, in all due respect, what I'm hearing from Mr. Cooney and Captain Hall is we have contracted for services that we are not receiving. I do believe that Commissioner Henschel, who has been in the forefront of this, needs to be involved with the county administrator and give us a recommendation. And I'm willing to fight for what we have contracted for and are not receiving. But I do want Commissioner Henschel on any committee, and I think I heard Commissioner Inman say the same thing, but we need to move forward with, and I understand, you know, money is limited, believe me, you know, but we have a contract, I want to see it honored.
Jason?
What are we spending right now in CMH?
$680,000.
$680,000.
82.
Okay. And some change. Commissioner Inman made a point that when it was set up, is ultimately we bought in because it provided some form of a cap, a guarantee that we weren't going to be going beyond a certain amount. We expected growth, and hey, we're gonna get a bargain down the road. And as you pointed out, Captain Hall, a few years ago, we decided, well, we don't have any money, so we're going to start cutting back services. Well, that's kind of not what, it certainly isn't what we bargained for. I wonder if when, and I think the appropriate thing is definitely to sit down and look at what our options are. I think one of those options should be to look at our involvement with these authorities or with groups that merely add overhead and have a false promise of some kind of financial security down the road, and looking at perhaps contracting directly from our own health department if that's what needs to be done, with some collaboration with our jail services. But that's a lot of money that we're spending, and I commend Commissioner Henschel, by the way, for really digging into this and getting some of the facts. But I think we need to look at some different options and we have to do what's best for our county here too. So,
Chris?
Well, I have to tell you, for this kind of money, couldn't we have a full-time psychiatrist and drugs and, well, maybe more than one psychiatrist?
We are required by the state mandate to participate
I
in Northern
know,
Lakes
but I
mental
mean,
health.
I'm just
We have
saying.
no choice.
Well, I want to get what we're paying for.
I had a question for our attorney, Bob Cooney. In reading the founding document of Northern Lakes, you said earlier that the level of service is not stipulated, but one thing sticks out of my mind is the way it's phrased is Northern Lakes, the authority, will continue to provide services in the jail. Might that be an indicator of the level of service such that it would have to be at the continued level it was at the time of the establishment?
I suppose you could make that argument, and again, there is a level of service, and it's the level that professionals would feel is appropriate to the community that's being served. And in fact, I think that's what the agreement states. And so there is a level of service, but it's a gray scale. And the reason I say this isn't as simple as we're not getting what we contracted for, well, you have to keep in mind that the other 5 counties are not getting a psychiatrist coming into the jail. And so we would be asking for something that the other partners are not getting, and keep in mind that those are the partners that we would be pursuing for that. And I think that another part of this is, I know that Captain Hall sat down with the other jail administrators in those counties and discussed how can we equalize the services that we're getting so that it's fair throughout Northern Lakes Community Mental Health. And there's a document that they prepared that discusses what they found, what services are being provided in each of those different counties to inmates. And
that was going to be my second question is, Captain Hall, could you tell us about that process and what the timeline has been? Just to bring everyone else up to speed with what you've been doing with this.
Back in August of last year, I met with the 5 jail administrators from the other counties, Leelanau, Wexford, Missaukee, Roscommon, and Crawford, the 6 counties that make up Northern Lakes Community Mental Health. And we addressed 7 issues regarding the mental health services provided by Northern Lakes Community Mental Health. We addressed and compared the routine mental health presence in our jail from their organization, CMH's response during business hours to emergency calls, CMH's response after hours for non-emergency calls and emergency calls, the availability of CMH's psychiatrists, the provision of medications to the inmates and who pays for them, and the transportation of inmates for CMH appointments and hospitalization. Across the board, Mr. Cooney's correct. No other jail has psychiatrists that come into the jail. But the other counties, if they take and have a need for a psychiatric evaluation or intervention, they take their inmate to Northern Lakes Community Mental Health's office, and their psychiatrists see them, whether they're a client or not. That is different than what we have run into with the local office of Northern Lakes Mental Health. There were some subtle differences throughout all of those categories, and we came up with a document. I believe I gave you, Commissioner Henschel, a copy of that document, where we all agreed on a standard that we thought was a minimum standard that all of us would accept as reasonable for Northern Lakes mental health professionals in our jails. Each county certainly had an option or an opportunity to negotiate with their local office something a little different if they wanted to do something differently, and we didn't want to stand in the way of that. But something as simple as a set day of the week or days of the week that the mental health assessor would come in and do the assessments on the inmate should be a standard. Whether it's 1 day a week or 2 days a week, or in our case 5 days a week, because of our size, it should be, they should know when that mental health professional is coming. And in some jails, they never know. So if they have an issue with an inmate, they don't know when the next time a mental health professional is going to be there. And we felt that was just not acceptable. In all cases, none of the other 5 counties have paid for any medications that were issued by the psychiatrist to the mental health needed inmates in the jails. We do. I didn't understand that either. That didn't make sense either. Now, the psychiatrist that we have that comes in, that we pay for to come in, she's been gracious enough when she gives us the inmates' medications and puts them on some of these very expensive psychotropic meds like Seroquel. It's like $300 a prescription. She's been bringing us samples at no charge that she gets from the pharmaceutical manufacturers, but that's not an endless option for us. It's going to run out, and we're going to end up having to pay for them. Other psychotropic meds have cost us $13,000, $14,000 a year that we've been paying out of our budget that none of the other counties have to pay. So between each county, there's huge discrepancies, and we came up with a recommendation for mental health. We did give this to Mr. Paffhouse some time ago, and he's assured me that he is working toward meeting some of these standardized services amongst all 6 counties, but we haven't seen that yet. So,
well, I think an important thing to note is, Bob, Mr. Cooney talks about the fact that there's 6 counties involved, but I think that, this Bob thing confuses me. It's been a long week. The problem is that we need to remember that when we talk about the consensus of services required in the jail, I don't believe there's any one of those 6 counties that believes that consensus is being met.
No.
Captain Hall.
That's the key piece. Even though we've come to this consensus, and even the mental health people talk about, these are the services that you need in your jail, not one of the 6 counties is that service being met by Great Lakes Mental Health. And we hear repeatedly, well, the state hospital was here, it was closed. That was 3 generations ago, folks.
Contracted.
We are way past the discussion that because the mental hospital closed here, that's why you have the problem. We're generations past that.
Captain Hall, could you describe for us, what is the result of these mental health services if they don't happen in the jail? What kind of things are you dealing with?
You can only imagine. Depends on the inmate that's in there. The real critical crisis inmate, the one that is in a protective gown, maybe in a protective chair to prevent that person from harming themselves or harming our officers, mental health works really well with those people. They've worked around the clock helping us move them to alternate, more secured mental health facilities, getting them out of the facility. They work really well with that. Less than that, we've had some difficulty getting the medications or getting the psychiatric time that's needed. There's no follow-up assessment to see how well the medications are working. They just don't have the time or the money to send someone in to sit and consult with the inmate, consult with our medical staff, to monitor the progress or how this inmate is adapting to the medications. Does he need more medication, less medication? There's very little follow-up that goes on with that.
So are people becoming aggressive, suicidal?
Some have. If we didn't have mental health services in the jail, that would be a horrible place to be.
Dean, you had a comment?
I just wanted to ask Captain Hall, I've been taking some notes, and I'll turn these over to Dennis, but at one point in time, did mental health provide a psychiatrist?
Yes, they did.
And I wanted to bring that up because I think Commissioner Henschel here has a valid point. If they were providing those services at one point in time, I think, I'm not an attorney, but establishing a baseline as to what they did provide, and if they're not providing at this point in time simply for financial reasons, at one point in time it was one of those services they thought was necessary. I guess I just wanted to throw that out. I think you make a very good point. I think we need to go back to that and say you were providing that service at one point, and all of a sudden it stopped.
Larry?
Mr. Chairman, I'll attempt to make a motion to summarize, I guess everyone's feeling here is that the County Board of Commissioners, or the Grand Traverse County Public Health and Safety Committee would direct our county administrator to develop a team of individuals to meet with to do a reevaluation of the Northern Lakes Community Mental Health Contract and discuss all the components of the contract, and that at a minimum that our Civil Counsel Bob Cooney, Captain Hall, Commissioner Henschel, and any other member he deems necessary or feels would be appropriate to be part of this evaluation discussion team would be part of this team, and they would come back with a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners.
I'll support.
Got that. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I believe I said
I'm sorry,
support.
yes, we have, never mind. Inman and Max Bauer, okay, we have the motion. I guess the only discussion that I would have is, I think, that committee needs to meet and have a discussion about this. But as far as a discussion with Great Lakes Community Mental Health or Northern Lakes Community Mental Health, whatever it's called this week, I would like to have that discussion publicly here in front of this board. I've sat through more meetings with Greg and Ann and Bob and Buck than Dean and Dennis and a couple of the judges than I can count over the last 14 years. But the fact is we're still having the exact same discussion. We're not getting the services that we need in the jail, and we're still paying for it. Jason.
Just a real quick note. You mentioned that we're required by state mandate. If so, I want the state to show us the money.
Yeah.
Under Headley, we should be looking for the check, and we should be asking for the check. Bottom line, if it's a state mandate, we need to see the money, period. We need to start standing on that That's all I've got to say.
Chris?
Well, I applaud the suggestion that it be in front of the full board, but I have full faith in Commissioner Henschel. I mean, the job he's done to date has been outstanding. And if it's not, I have no problem with that, as long as he's present.
Herb?
Yeah, we had an email to Chris about gambling addiction assessments. Is this part of that discussion? Or is that part of another?
That's this.
That's just part of it?
Chris who?
You. Oh, no, Chris Kramer, to Chris Kramer, I'm sorry.
I'm going to go, okay,
Yeah,
I
but
just
see,
want you to
anyway,
clarify, that's all.
C1 or
C2?
Yeah.
They tell you that gambling addiction is a mental illness.
Yes.
And I guess I had never heard that particular
Absolutely.
part of that situation. And if so, then why aren't we getting tribal grants? Because there's a lot of gambling grants out there available for.
I actually brought that up at the community corrections meeting.
Okay.
I said we should be looking for tribal grants.
And then also, we get money from the liquor tax to take care of some of these addiction problems with alcohol.
All that gets paid to substance abuse.
NIMSIS, yeah, I know. So, but, I mean,
We don't get
but
to
have we
negotiate
brought
that
them
number either.
into this whole process to look at whether or not they're providing the services that we need to? Because we are getting money, it's just how are we spending it, and are we spending it wisely?
Further discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, guys.
You got all that down for Dennis, do you, Dean?
That's why we have webcast replay.
Okay, our next order of business is Commission on Aging Personal Emergency Response Units. You?
Mr. Chairman, do we have to approve this motion that they have approved? Is that what this process is?
Yeah.
I believe we have to enter into the contract on
Yes.
behalf of Grand Traverse County. The contract is between Grand Traverse County and this agency. It's not between the Commission on Aging.
Then I make a
They don't
motion
have the
to
ability to
award a
enter
three-year
the
contract to Guardian Medical for 2012, 13, and 14 with a minimum unit capacity of 200, maximum quality of 500.
Support.
Support.
Okay, motion by Linco, supported by Max Bauer.
We're going to have a problem with this one.
Questions? Rick or Rob?
Is there a reason this is a 3-year contract versus a 1? And if we have any problems, what does it take to get out of this contract?
The get out of it would probably be a Bob Cooney question, but the reason why we did 3 years was just time savings and cost savings. We thought if we bid it out for more years, we'd get a lower price, and we did. About $2 a unit less in price.
Good. Okay. And have you read the contract?
I have not.
I take it off the Bob Cooney reviews that neither one of us can get out of the contract.
Okay, so if we say we're not happy, drop it.
I think there's probably some
there would be a-
days, notice. There's usually in the contracts, it's 30 days or 60 days or 90 days notice.
We'll make sure there's a termination clause in the contract.
Reasonable?
Yeah.
Currently contract
Yeah, thank you.
The other thing with long-term contracts or longer-term contracts is because of the time it takes to get the equipment into these people's homes and get them educated on how to use it. If you turn around and 6 months from now you change vendors, then you're trying to train them how to use different equipment. And the equipment's not all the same, even though it does similar function. Ross, did you have a question?
No, I was just going to, not a real question. So really, the only difference is $1,200 a year at the 500 unit level. But even with that, critical signal technologies you didn't feel met the requirements as well as Guardian technology.
Right, they were not UL certified, and that was one of our requirements.
And you are
in our bid.
satisfied with the service you've been getting from Guardian?
We are very satisfied.
This is a critical service for those, the seniors, that keeps them in their home.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Georgia.
Thanks for staying.
Okay, that brings us to unfinished business. I don't believe we had any. Was there any new business?
Nope.
This is the second opportunity for public comment. Before they all run out the door, is there any of the public that wishes to make comment at this time?
Run.
Thank you for attending.
Seeing none, we'll move forward. Commissioner committee reports. Larry?
Yes, and I'm not sure if the commissioners did get a copy of this. I'm not sure if Katie was in today or not. To be honest with you, with the way my life has been going here this week with trying to resolve my dad's funeral and my brother's funeral and the estate issues, so I've been running double time here. But I did ask staff to forward a email from Rebecca Schneider from the American Wind Energy Association, and with attachments on information. And I don't know if you've gotten that or not, but I just want to have an indication from the board whether they feel that we should just refer this to staff for review and recommendation. Something that they would, apparently the legislation expires at the end of the year, and they're trying to approach all the county commissions in Michigan. And so I guess my suggestion is we refer this to Dennis's office, see if he wants to involve John Syke or whoever, and then come back with a recommendation whether we want to do a resolution or not to Congressman Camp.
Chris, you had a comment?
Yes, I did receive a telephone call today. I have not had an opportunity to return it.
Yeah.
And so I really can't offer an opinion yet, and I have not been
Either
on
right.
my email because I'm kind of sluggish at that.
Yeah. So I guess my recommendation is to defer this item if the board would allow, or if the chairman would allow that to occur.
My suggestion would be that we put the issue of wind energy on the physical resources agenda for next week.
Okay, RMA.
Or for resource management, you know.
Okay.
That way we'll have an opportunity to review. I did read the email, and I too, like Chris, got a message on my voicemail, but I have not had an opportunity to return her call. But I did read the email this morning, and I do know, and one of the things, you know, just because of another hat that I wear, I do know that there are businesses in our community that are directly tied to the wind industry. And I'd like to, you know, have an opportunity to speak to those people and possibly have them come and talk to us about how important this tax credit is to their business within our community also. And therefore, I guess my suggestion would be that we put it on the resource management agenda for next week unless someone has an objection. Jason?
Understanding that the people have, I mean, welcome to the world of being lobbied. I mean, that's exactly what this is. She's just a lobbyist. She's called my house as well. She's emailed as if, you know, the point is, wind energy at this point is still twice as much or 3 times as much as producing other forms, particularly natural gas or coal. Is it a great idea? Well, I mean, it's debatable. I mean, I personally don't have a problem with them. But to advocate as a board more taxpayer money being taken and given to a particular industry because they cannot compete on their own, I think is probably inappropriate. But that's just me, and I suppose if it becomes before the board, I'll have to vote that way at that time.
No, it's not just you.
Herb?
Okay. Yeah, you know, I also talked to her, but I also mentioned that she ought to be talking with the Economic Development Corporation to find out where they stand on this issue, and also that the chamber has an energy committee, and I suggested that she go through that energy committee, and then if they feel that we need to get involved with it, then, but I just felt that that's the lobbying group. The chamber is a lobbying group. The Economic Development is a lobbying group. We are not. And so I just really feel that it's really important that they go through the processes for the organizations that know more about this kind of a subject than anything else, rather than trying to put it on us.
I guess then the question is, do we want it on the RMA agenda or no?
No.
No. If you put a little windmill over on that desk, we could probably keep it going.
It will get a little windmill fight.
We'll take care of that, and, you know, if any of us speak to the lady, you know, we'll tell her that the county board is not going to take.
I'll review it tomorrow with Katie and Chris.
Okay. That's fine, thanks.
Everyone else had their say, so I'll say.
Technically, an individual, any county commissioner can put an item on
I did
the
get
agenda.
the voice message, and I immediately opened my phone to the Capitol switchboard, which I have on speed dial, and called Dave Camp's office and said, here's a message for Dave Camp. I know they're lobbying really hard for this tax credit. I'm not in favor of any tax credits, because when you give someone a credit for something, it means everyone else is paying more. You know, so why should I have to pay for an industry that can't pay for itself? If it's a matter of national security, it's one thing, but we're talking about an industry.
Okay. Is there other commissioners that have committee reports? Herb?
Yeah. Apple Days are coming up here the week of the 25th of October, and the Wellness Committee always hands out apples, and we are looking forward to whether or not the commissioners are willing to hand out apples to the different departments of the county.
Honeycrisp, Portland's, what kind? Macintosh?
Honeycrisps are really big.
I love Honeycrisp, but I don't think so. But we buy multiple bushels of apples, and then we disperse them out to the individual departments. County, employees really appreciate the fact that we as commissioners would take some time out of our agenda and to be able to put an apple on each person's desk and say thank you for what they're doing. We just got the report, from Commissioner Henschel about, how well we appreciate employees. This is just a really nice little touch. So I'm wondering if the commissioners would be willing to do that or not willing to do that. I mean, we haven't done it for a couple of years. I did it when I was here before. I know that we're appreciated. And so, if you could spend an hour the week of the 25th or 2 hours to be able to hand out apples, we would appreciate that. Is that?
Well, I have to say, I hand out chocolate at Halloween, so I certainly am willing to hand out apples.
Okay. So, okay, good. Anybody else?
Well, the thing, when we used to do it before, we had day meetings.
Yeah, well, that's true.
That's true, too.
But, they'll put the apples in a bag, they'll have them all counted out for each individual department, and they'll build it. So all you have to do is go to that department and hand them out, and there'll be a little thank you note to it.
You're either going to miss an apple if it's...
By the way, this year they're roads.
Are they? The road apples? No. Thank you. Come on now.
All right, enough with the foolishness. Is there any other commission important information?
Yeah. I did attend a transportation meeting on Monday that was really well received by a lot of different people. It was people from all over the state of Michigan. The next Michigan people out of the Detroit Metro Airport were there making a presentation about how they're using the next Michigan. But one of the issues that I thought was really interesting is that we're not in competition with each individual person or community throughout the state of Michigan. We're in competition with the world. And one of the things that they, as part of the transportation, was that Halifax port is the deepest port in North America. It is also the quickest port to get any goods and services into Detroit. They can cut the time down by almost a day to 2 days difference in transporting. So we are going to be trying to compete with the world to see how do we bring products into the United States through Halifax, through Detroit with the train loads. They're talking about 35 trains a day in box of cars being able to brought into Detroit. This is a major market coming in, and the beautiful thing about it is they're also a major manufacturing component, and we have the ability to manufacture goods and ship them back out. So the containers go both ways, and so it was just a real good thing. But also I want to let you know that the governor will be talking about transportation issues, I think about the 25th of October, and presenting his plan. So be aware and listen up, and it should be a rather interesting discussion as to how we're going to handle our roads in the future.
Okay. Anything else?
Move to adjourn?
Any announcements? No closed session? Motion,
Perhaps I should.
Motion by Max Bauer, do a
Yes.
second. We have a support. We're all gone now.
I'm working
Thank
on
you.
it. Move to adjourn.